Hey guys, it's me, Alexander Jarvis, and we'll be dealing with the e-commerce financial model. Now, this is the 11th and final video, and it's just a quick one that I want to do to give you some feedback or some insight into checking that you got the model right. I've just done a bunch of videos. The lights are kind of bright. I'm getting a bit tired, so I'll try my best. If you have feedback, you want me to cover some things in some more detail, hit me up in the comments and I'll be sure to redo the video and make sure I cover everything you want. But conceptually, it's not hard, but having the expert level insight is sort of the difference. And you either know or you kind of don't know, which is why people reach out to me with a model and say, hey, Alex, can we do a session? Can we go through these things? And a lot of it is just looking for things that don't seem to make sense, looking for heuristics. What are the multiples of growth every year? Are you becoming profitable too early? Do things kind of make sense? And so personally, I can either do or I can critique. So if I build my own model, of course I can understand if it makes sense because, like, I'm the one who made it, right? But for most people, or for other things that I do, I really struggle to criticize myself in a very logical fashion. So say I write a 10,000 word blog, it's seriously hard for me to go through and go, do you know what? You didn't really write it in the best approach. You need to think about it in a different way. Whereas if I'm reviewing your 10,000 word blog, it's a lot easier for me to do. So generally, I would recommend finding someone to go through what you've done and challenge it and make sure that you understand the logic. So it's really important to understand that your numbers are wrong, your forecasts are wrong. Just because you got a fancy model from me doesn't mean that now going to be right. What matters is when you're talking with investors that you're logical and that you understand things. And so when you've done something, is there a logic to what it is? Do things start high at the start? Do they go low over time? If they do, why? What was your thinking about it? Because it's that insight that you have beyond just like something is acquisition cost is 50, it doesn't change. It's not reality. It is going to change. But do you have logic around it? Because that signals to investors, seems like Mary knows what she's talking about, right? Jim's a good guy. He really knows his finance stuff. That's what you really want to be thinking about. So what would I do if I had just finished my model and I wanted to go through and make sure nothing was obviously stupid or was really missing something or doesn't really kind of make sense? I know you know what I'm talking about here. So other than going through every single sheet and be like, did I actually make this much money or lose this much money for these 3 months? Which you can check easily, because at the end of the day, when you go to your bottom net income number, you know, right? And if it's off, what I do is triangulate to figure out what it is. So it's either revenue is off or a cost item is off. Now, if you go to the top and you know that your revenue numbers are right, then it's a cost problem. So where is the cost problem? Look for those numbers. Maybe you accidentally type something in positive instead of negative. That's an easy one. There's not very much you can mess up in some of the sheets, like the forecast, your discounts and cancellation rates reasonable. So it's probably not the core of the issue. So if it's not coming into your, so if you look at, say, the combined sheet and you can see that there's a problem here in, say, year 2, well, you know that the actual sheet only goes for 12 months or 11 months. It doesn't go for 12. So it's not going to be a problem with your actuals. It's going to be a problem to do with your forecast. You need to be figuring out what the problem is with your forecasting somewhere. Again, if it's a revenue problem, then look for what the things which related to your pricing, maybe your marketing. If it's a large cost problem, it's probably a staff issue. So I would go looking in the staff sheet. So rather than just going looking for every single cell, what I do is I try and ascertain where the problem probably is and go looking for it where it is likely to be. So like immediate thing goes, well, why are there no customer care costs? Are they not doing customer care? And you go, oh, well, I'm not doing customer care for the first 3 months because I'm going to do it. Well, okay, that makes sense, but that's something I would notice. Oh, they don't have any customer care costs. That's something you would notice, right? And I would just do that for everything. But ultimately, the main place I would be doing to make sure that the model makes sense, to checking you got it right, is I would spend my time in the KPI sheet, because if your ratios, etc., don't make sense, your model doesn't make sense. So look at all the numbers that matter. So start at your financials. They all make sense. Are you making enough money? Are you losing enough money normally? If you're not, at what point do things not make sense, right? So if you're looking at your PC 1, 2, and 3, at what point are things making sense? Oh, my PC 2 doesn't make sense. Okay, well then I know marketing and other related costs are not part of the problem. It's something further up the funnel. So go looking for the things related to those. And if you don't know what they are, you look at, again, here, the difference between PC 1, 2, and 3 to figure out what the related cost items are. Looking at how costs are being allocated somewhere. If for some reason, I mean, we're only spending 1% in G&A now. Oh, sorry, there's a total as a percentage. Does that make sense? Does that not make sense? Like if we these all kind of seem to make sense. 15, 17, 19. So buying is increasing. Why is buying increasing? Oh, that makes sense. Why does R&D go up? Well, we're going to build our product out a bit more and then we're going to bring it down because it's not a complicated product, so we don't need to spend more on it. So does that kind of trend right? And if it's blatantly wrong, you can look at the exact month where things start going wrong and say, let's just pretend, I don't know, this becomes like 50% for like God knows why, right? Well, what month does it go wrong? And so you go to the end because it's the third year, so it must be somewhere in these 12 months. And then I don't know, you see it now, it suddenly becomes 50% at this point. Like, okay, cool. Around month 29, things start going wrong. And so you go into the related sheet, whether or not it's a revenue or expense item, and be like, okay, month 29 is where something goes wrong. I must have made a mistake. Don't worry, it's easy for me to fix, but that's the easy way to tell. Also, I have conditional formatting where it matters. So blue is low, or white is low, red is high. So PC1, 94%. Is that reasonable? You can see these where things flaring up. And visually, you can just get an idea of what's happening here around. And if anything is... Okay, why is that suddenly negative? What is that number? I don't know what it is. What's going on here? Operating cash flow. Okay, that's because at this point I raised money. Probably. I think pretty sure it is. And here at this point I raised money. That's why there is a change. Okay, that makes sense. No worries. And if anyone asks, I didn't already know because I checked, right? Key metrics is definitely the first place I would look to get a holistic view of does the business work, right? On my acquisition costs, CACs, on a fully and unfully loaded basis. So the fully loaded difference is really going to be your staff costs. Is my funnel kind of generally making sense? Am I ballpark in terms of things? My average orders making sense? I wouldn't put too much reliance on the LTV CAC ratios for an e-commerce company because it's more designed for SaaS. I built it anyway, but it'll still be indicative. Are you on trend or off trend? Looking at how you're trending with terms of headcount. I mean, if you suddenly find yourself building, 100 million revenue business and you've only got 3 people, is that realistic? Unless you're doing a lot of outsourcing, not really, right? But as an investor, this is what I would go to kind of make sure that you're sort of trending in the right direction. Things generally kind of make sense. If you pass a sniff test, then I might go in and have a look at more details about the logic of what you're doing. But I wouldn't overestimate how much time investors love looking at these things. So if you build out your model and the numbers kind of make sense, you sort of get a pass, right? That they're not going to spend too much time. Whereas if things blatantly don't make sense, people are going to dig in a bit, or maybe just decide that you're an idiot and they stop spending the time. So your P&Ls are going to matter. Your P&L forecast is probably the next thing I would immediately look at after your KPI sheet and just seeing how things trend. Like, I'm not overly concerned about the yearly parts. What I would probably look at is the yearly. Okay, so the orders are going up. This is going up by 8-ish times, 9 times. It's going up by about 3 times. Like, the early stage, they're ramping up, and then I guess that sort of makes sense. Revenue-wise, okay, the big increase is coming because the expectations of new orders. Revenue doesn't seem to be increasing as much as the orders. Probably pricing is coming down as a consequence of it. I wonder why. That's something I would probably check. Or maybe I could just quickly look across and see at what point does it seem like the numbers are not growing quite as what I thought they were. I would just generally see, okay, how much they're spending on discounts and vouchers or cancellations. Are they ballpark? And if I understand e-commerce, I'd know, right? How much are you spending on different activities? Does this match with what you're saying in your pitch deck? Like you say you care about customer care, but you're not doing that much customer care. That would be like something I would look for. Are you spending enough on marketing to generate the revenue you have, which I would more likely tell from the KPI sheets? If you're becoming profitable too early, it's kind of like a big one for most investors to know, like you don't know what you're doing. Sometimes people, especially if they hire an accountant to help them with the model, want to be profitable early because certain kinds of angel investors want to see it. That's a pretty big flag for me because I know most companies are not profitable for a long time if they have a growth mentality. Because the reality is you can change your levers around at a certain point of business and decide when you want to be profitable by basically decreasing your growth, which is actually one of the reasons why we split out your PC1, 2, 3, and marketing is explicitly spelled out. Because by decreasing your marketing spend, paid marketing spend for a lot of companies, that's actually the main lever that you apply in order to become profitable. So I go through this and generally see to make, does everything ultimately make sense? And again, if it doesn't, then I would go looking, instigating, why is that? And it's typically because you just make some stupid thing. You use a plus instead of a minus, use like 10 instead of 1, that some idiotic thing. Like I make mistakes in my model sometimes when I'm updating them, just because like, I don't know, I accidentally typed 5, right, by not looking. And especially if it's not formatted right, which is why I always use yellow boxes, because where is the number I changed? Here. How hard is it to see that? So you see, literally by tapping a button, you can make a really big problem that's almost impossible to actually tell by not seeing do things kind of make sense. So you see this number here, just by typing in 5, it's really messed up everything that's going to come up afterwards. And the only way to tell is by checking that things actually are following and making sense. So we suddenly went from 71 million, I think, to minus 19 million. But you'd have to look for it. And it's such an innocuous little number, right? Which is why I always put things in these yellow boxes to make sure that you don't do anything wrong. Honestly, look, shit happens sometimes when you have huge models like this. You just have to look out for it. Okay, so that's where I would generally spend my time, is my KPI sheet and probably the forecast sheet. Obviously, if your P&L actuals make sense. A nice place to see are things trending in the right direction. Looking for anomalies are just by flicking through the chart sheets, right? Things are growing. Okay, it's probably because we're hiring more people. Cool. Headcount, everything sort of makes sense. Why is this blue? Fulfillment's going up more. Why? It's going up more than everything. Maybe it's because I have my fixed base and this is a variable point. Okay, probably makes sense. What else? Okay, this red orange thingies. Why is that so big? Is it payment cost or something? That's because, well, these other costs are not so important, and really the key variable as we scale is possibly my payment costs. Why is there a spike here? Investigate. Do you know why? Don't just look and go, oh, there's something weird there, and leave it. Investigate everything and know why it's there. And so if something looks silly and then someone asks, you go, yeah, that's obvious. It's because, right? But you don't blink, you have the answer. So what I'm looking for are, why does this suddenly go up? Right? Do you know? Do you not know? Is it because seasonality? Is it something's happened? You make a change in how you're doing your business? What's this production? Well, because as we changed the model before, it's because of the seasons or the quarters we have new SKUs to do. So every 3 months we're going to have costs. And for some reason, we don't have new ones. Why is that? Well, it's because in the video I changed it up for you. But you would go, oh shit, fuck, I forgot that I didn't put in new stocks here. I was just playing around, but I forgot to do it. I'm going to have to put my SKUs back in to make sure that I have my production costs, right? Obviously. but it's not growing. Why don't I have more SKUs? Is it because I'm being very restrictive and having a very low basis? But what is it? But always be looking at what's going on. Why is this going bigger than this one? It's because, well, we're going to flat out with certain types of customers. Why is the repeat orders, new orders going up? Why is my average order value increasing versus my repeat rate, which is not? Is that logical? Maybe I should go check. Is my items per order actually going to be stagnant? Why is this happening? Why is that not changing? Know why. And typically you look at these curves and you're like, I should go investigate that and go and check it. So like, I don't know, revenue per item. Probably it's going to be in my SKU box. What's happening here? Where are the assumptions being changed? So go through all the charts and they will indicate, without having to think too much, of are there any potential issues? And then you do the thinking bit, figuring out why is there an issue when you think you found one. But you should know the reason for why everything is trending the direction it is. Why is organic becoming meaningful? Why is paid becoming less meaningful? Why is email eventually becoming a significant part, but starting out by being a small part? Where are my registrations coming from? All right, what are my conversion rates different? CPCs are very stagnant on other, and why is that? Because it's not doing anything, zero. But run through all of these and know why there are things happening here. See, we're taking out SKUs, spiking at certain points. Why is this becoming more meaningful? So check everything and then go investigate. So yeah, what I would basically say is look at the KPI sheet. Are you order of magnitude in the right direction? Because no one gives a shit if it's 71 instead of 70, or it's 65 or 75 if the number is big enough. So plus or minus 10%, not a big deal. If you're a growing business, 3x growth a year on year is a good place to be. If you're later stage, 2x, or at very later stage, maybe 40% is a good place to be. So long as you know order of magnitude of growth and direction that you want to be, then you're in a good place. If you plan on raising every 12 months, and so this is like end of seed, doing your A, this is getting towards your B, and then we say we're doing a C. Is that what investors will expect to see in order to fund you? That's a pretty big question, right? Is your cost basis reasonable? So you go through all these things. Then you go into more detail to make sure that your profit and loss makes sense. Go through all your charts and then investigate, because everything will pop up here if something doesn't make sense. And then you only need to go into all the other sheets if you find a problem. But to answer the question, have I done things right? The main question is, have you generated the numbers which investors are looking for first off to qualify you as being a candidate? And secondly, have you made numbers which are reasonable and not stupid? So maybe you don't know and you weren't aggressive enough. And so they might think you're just not the kind of person they want to fund. Or maybe you do stupid numbers where you're growing 1,000x every year, which is obviously not smart, right? It's not real. In which case investors think this guy, Alex, he doesn't know what the frick he's talking about. So don't do that. But that's generally what I would be thinking about is, are everything in the right order of magnitude? Are they in the right direction? And if something doesn't make sense, investigate and then have an answer for it. So it's fine if something looks weird, you just need to know the answer. Or potentially you preempt it by writing in the PowerPoint, in the Excel, making comments, whatever it is you want to do, to then proactively explain why things are the case where they are. Again, what investors are looking for is to understand that you know the answer rather than just what the numbers are, because your forecasts are going to be wrong, but there's logic for all the little individual assumptions which will create that outcome. So I didn't necessarily give you like a super clear step-by-step, this is what you do, because there isn't one. It's more about getting a sense of things and being able to pick up anything that doesn't look right. So that's the end of this training series. If there's any big questions which I haven't really addressed, and I'm sure there are some, sound out in the comments. If what you say makes loads of sense, I'll make a video just for you and put it up. If I haven't quite covered things, maybe I'll make a video and I'll cover all those little topics. But let me know, because I build these things. I understand probably more than maybe you will. So I don't know the challenges that you're going to be having. Like, what are the areas that you're struggling to think about? And I'll only know if you tell me. So feel free to give me feedback and I'll bust out a video for you. Again, it's Saturday night and I'm having the time of my life. Okay, guys, keep hustling. Have a great day. Bye.